Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever actually stopped to wonder what a hidden number in a bank account really does to the world around you? We almost always think about wealth in terms of stuff, right? Cars, massive houses, insane vacations. But the reality is, wealth doesn't just change your bank balance. It literally alters the fabric of how humanity treats you. So today, we're going to climb the invisible ladder of wealth together, rung by rung, starting from absolute zero and going all the way up to $25 million, to see exactly how the rules of human interaction just shift beneath your feet. Okay, to really grasp this, let's dive into this honestly bizarre story about a guy named Nathan. For almost a decade, Nathan walked into the exact same coffee shop, ordered the exact same black coffee, and was, well, practically invisible to the barista. 9 years. Then, he sold a business he'd been building in his garage. He comes in the next day, wearing the exact same windbreaker with the little frayed cuff. But suddenly, without him saying a single word, his name is written on the cup. The owner even comes out and shakes his hand. What actually changed? Just a number in a bank account that literally nobody in that shop could even see. So what exactly does that hidden number do to the people standing right in front of you?
Before we start climbing, we have to clear something up, because this brilliantly illustrates why you probably don't feel secretly loaded, even when headlines say otherwise. Back in 2022, the average American family net worth was reported at over $1.2 million. But here's the thing. The average is a mathematical liar. It's pulled way up into the stratosphere by a tiny fraction of the ultra-rich. The median, meaning the actual person standing dead in the middle of the economy, is worth about $192,000. And that right there is the actual reality of the middle class, looking way up at this massive ladder.
So, we are going to climb this ladder together, and we have to start at the absolute brutal bottom, $0. Down here, the immediate reality you face every single day isn't pity. It's overt, active suspicion. Just look at the entirely backwards math of being broke. It's a very real thing called the poverty premium. Think about it. If you have a financial cushion and you suddenly need $500, you just put it on a credit card and pay it off a few weeks later for practically nothing. But if you have absolutely nothing, you go to a payday lender and get hit with a 400% annual percentage rate, or you get hit with a $35 overdraft fee for being $3 short. The system actively charges you a massive punishing tax for the specific sin of not having money. Basically, the less you have, the more you pay for the privilege of just surviving. Let's look at a really practical example of how this plays out. The author, Terry Pratchett, had this brilliant concept that perfectly brings the poverty premium to life. Let's imagine a woman named Denise. Denise can't afford a $50 pair of boots up front, so she has to buy $10 boots every single winter. The problem is they leak, her feet freeze, and over 5 years, she ends up spending $50 anyway. But the rich guy across town? He spends $50 once on a great pair of boots, his feet stay dry for a whole decade, and he actually spends less money over time. It completely proves that the bottom of the ladder isn't just a tough place to stand, it literally has walls that aggressively lean inward to keep you trapped there. And the really crucial point here is that this isn't just some clever metaphor. Hard science backs us up. Researchers at Princeton University did these MRI studies showing that we subconsciously sort humanity by warmth and competence. But when subjects were placed in the scanner and shown pictures of the absolute poorest individuals, like folks living on the street, something terrifying happened. The actual part of the brain that registers another human being sometimes failed to fully switch on. Let that sink in. People at the absolute bottom are sometimes processed by human brains more like objects on the sidewalk than actual people. It's a completely staggering reality. Okay, let's step up to $10,000. At this rung, that active suspicion finally vanishes, but you enter a brand new, very quiet trap. Complete institutional invisibility. Welcome to the invisible middle. Up here, every institution you interact with treats you strictly as a transaction, never as a relationship. You are the automated phone tree. You are the hour-long hold music. You are Group 9 boarding on an airplane, squeezing into the middle seat right next to the bathroom. You know the feeling, right? You aren't being actively mistreated, exactly, but you are merely being processed. And the real trap is that you just accept this bare minimum treatment because it feels perfectly normal. It's just all you've ever known. Now, watch closely what happens when you cross $250,000 in net worth. Because this is where the psychological whiplash really begins. For the very first time in your life, you are no longer chasing the system. An institution is actually going to start chasing you. The very second you cross this invisible threshold, what we call the profit line, everything changes. Below this line, you literally cost the bank money to serve, which is why they shove you into an automated phone tree. But above this line, a bank suddenly assigns an actual human being to your account. They learn your kids' names. They send you artisan fruit baskets around the holidays. Why? Because you've magically transformed from a cost into a valuable asset that desperately needs to be protected. When you put these two experiences side by side, it perfectly captures how the financial system runs upside down on purpose. A broke person walks into a bank and is immediately treated as a liability. They're interrogated, given high rates, assumed guilty until proven innocent. But a wealthy person walks in for the exact same loan. They get the absolute best rate, the total benefit of the doubt, and a genuine apology for any minor inconvenience. The truth is, they aren't pricing your need at all. They are entirely pricing your balance. Let's move to the next rung, $1 million. Now that word sounds like pure royalty, doesn't it? But mathematically speaking, today, it's really just a secure middle-class income without a job attached. Yet this is exactly where human treatment takes its first genuinely dark turn. Think about it. How do strangers even know you have this money? Well, this brings us to conspicuous consumption. When people first get some real money, they often buy huge logos, incredibly loud cars, and financed watches specifically to broadcast to the world that they've moved up. But truly secure wealth, it does the exact opposite. Old money hides in unbranded cashmere sweaters and invisible access. They signal their status quietly and only to other insiders. Usually the loudest people in the room are the ones still desperately climbing the ladder. Next up, we hit $5 million. At this point, work is completely optional for you. And right here, the rules of normal human interactions start quietly suspending themselves all around you. Normal life is made up of 1,000 tiny walls, right? Fully booked restaurants, 3-week waits just to see a doctor, super rigid store policies. But at $5 million, you start experiencing the disappearing no. Fully booked tables just suddenly materialize when you call. Ironclad corporate policies miraculously find an exception with your name on it. Through things like concierge medicine, where you literally pay tens of thousands a year just to have a doctor's personal cell phone number, the waiting rooms of life simply vanish before you even reach them. And there's this famous Berkeley experiment that brilliantly illustrates the psychology of experiencing that unbroken deference. Researchers set up a rigged game of Monopoly. One player was given twice the money to start and got to roll 2 dice instead of 1. They were mathematically guaranteed to win. And what happened? The rigged player got loud, they got aggressive, and, get this, they literally ate more of the shared pretzels sitting on the table. But the absolute wildest part? After the game, when asked why they won, they confidently attributed their victory to their own brilliant strategy. It just goes to show, when the game is rigged in your favor for long enough, you completely forget that someone is holding the doors open for you. All right, moving up to $10 million. Now you qualify for elite private wealth management, but a terrifying new problem officially moves into your house. A fascinating Boston College study looking at ultra-wealthy households revealed the true emotional cost of this level, and it's heavy. They reported constant low-grade anxiety, a deep sense of isolation, and this gripping, overwhelming fear of ruining their children with money. But the absolute worst part is the complete inability to trust. Because you simply can't hide wealth at this level, the interrogation room in your head becomes permanent. You actually start auditing the people who love you for motives they might not even have. You're constantly wondering, does this new romantic partner actually love me, or do they just love the life I provide? Finally, we reach the top rung of our ladder, $25 million. You are now in the top 1/4% of the entire country. Up here, you don't just get treated differently by humanity, you get entirely separated from humanity. Welcome to the realm of the family office. This is literally a private organization built solely to manage your life. Every single point of friction, waiting in lines, booking flights, calling customer service, is completely handled by someone on your payroll. But here's the catch. Those everyday frictions were also your primary points of unscripted human contact. When every tiny annoyance is smoothed away by employees, you lose touch with the rest of the world. It creates this incredibly strange gold-plated loneliness. It's essentially the feeling of living completely behind soundproof glass. So, looking all the way down from the top of this ladder, we have to ask the ultimate question. Does climbing it actually make people any happier? Well, this brings us to a fascinating scientific soap opera that questions the very purpose of acquiring all this wealth in the first place. For over a decade, the famous Kahneman study told us that happiness definitively flatlines once you hit $75,000 a year. But then the Killing Swartz study came along and said, no way, happiness actually rises endlessly with income. It was like a massive scientific bar fight. But finally in 2023, the researchers got together and reconciled their findings. And what they discovered is a profound truth. Money is astonishingly good at fixing problems made of money. It buys you out of the waiting rooms, the hold music, and the phone trees. But if you are carrying hidden grief, heartbreak, or severe loneliness, the money completely flatlines. It turns out money is entirely useless at fixing wounds of the heart.
And here is the incredible symmetry that almost nobody points out. Let's think back to Denise at the bottom, buying her cheap, leaking boots, and Nathan at the top with his millions. Opposite ends of the profit line actually create the exact same wound. Denise can't trust the world because it constantly punishes and takes from her. But Nathan, he can't fully trust the world either because it suddenly wants to give absolutely everything to him, and he questions everyone's true motives. Despite being millions of dollars apart, they're left with the exact same inability to take the people around them at face value.
Which really leaves us with this final massive question to chew on. If the number in your bank account went to zero tomorrow, who is actually still standing there beside you? Look, climbing out of the poverty premium and into comfort is an incredibly worthy goal. You absolutely should let money buy you out of the waiting rooms of life. But always remember, the wealth only changes how the world treats you. You alone have to do the hard, completely unscripted work of building the genuine human connections that will remain when the lights go out. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I truly hope this has completely changed how you view the invisible ladder all around us.